We interviewed Michael Dana last week. He grew up in Toronto, and he had an interesting perspective on how Canadians might differ musically in their approach than Americans. Have you thought about this before? Have you identified? One of the big things he said was he sensed when he came from Canada that a lot of Americans have a rebellious streak. They have a little bit more of a intensity and a fire, whereas a lot of Canadians, at least speaking about himself, said that he came from a background where there were a lot of different things to kind of pick and choose from, and he maybe didn't double down on things quite as much musically. But do you find that at all?
I've never thought about it before, but that makes perfect sense because it speaks to where we Canadians are as a culture vis-a-vis Americans. Mm-hmm. And all you have to do is look at our propensity to end sentences with A. Because there's a reason for that, right? I mean, here we are. We're a huge country by land size, but tiny by population, and totally dominated by America culturally. In fact, to the point where, and I'm sure Michael early in his career might have been the beneficiary of this policy as well, the government basically enacted like incentives for people who were making all kinds of media, music, TV shows, films, to hire Canadian people. Mm-hmm. It was known as CanCon, which is Canadian content. And in the early mid-'90s, that was the syndicated television boom. There were all these TV shows being made in Canada, and they needed to hire Canadian composers. And there was, by the way, an incorrect perception that the better composers were in LA and not in Canada. So they would come to LA, say, we need a composer for our show. And by the way, he or she has to be Canadian. And boom, 95% of my competition gone. And it was a fantastic way to start my career because I got some gigs that way, right. Honestly. So, you know, the reason why we say A is because it can turn any statement into a question, and we're very insecure. We want to make sure you Americans like us. So, you know, if I say something that's a definitive statement and I get suddenly worried that I'm going to piss you off because maybe I'm wrong, you know, I can like say, I can put this qualifier on it. Like, hey, it's a pretty nice day today, eh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just in case I'm wrong and it's not a nice day. Like, hey, whatever you say is cool, you know, America.
I've never heard that portrayal of why it's said.
It's totally true. And that totally goes with what Michael said, which is the rebellious streak, the whole idea of, you know, Americans as puff-chested, you know, win, lose, you know, no ties, you know, that sort of thing. It's like, it's boldness. It's, you know, we Americans have the confidence to be able to make these bold choices and not question ourselves. Whereas in Canada, you know, it's scary to make a bold choice because you might piss off the Americans.
Well, we think it's hot today. It's a hot day, and if you disagree, you're wrong.
Exactly. Thank you.
And I know that if my car breaks down in Canada, I know who to call. AAA.
Oh, boy.
Thank you. And on that note,
that might be a good time to wrap the show up.